Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the entire, epic, and let's be honest, profoundly weird saga of Norse mythology. We're not just touching on the highlights, we're starting at the absolute beginning, when nothing existed but a cosmic void, and we're going all the way to the very, very end. So, picture yourself adrift in the ultimate emptiness. There's no up, no down. You can't feel a breeze because there's no air. You can't see anything because there's no light. It's just nothingness. You float, suspended in a pre-everything, pre-you state of non-existence. Now, imagine a tiny, almost imperceptible warmth begins to tickle your senses from one direction, and a biting, bone-deep cold starts to creep in from another. This is the big moment, folks. The moment before the universe as we know it even had a first draft. You probably won't survive this. But hey, what a way to go. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from in the comments, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in Ginnungagap, the yawning abyss. It's the original blank slate, a perfect, serene nothingness. To the north, there's the intensely cold realm of Niflheim, a land of primordial ice and swirling mist. You can practically feel the frozen breath of its glaciers on your skin. To the south, in stark contrast, is the fiery land of Muspelheim, a realm of fire and searing heat. Guarded by the giant Surtur, you feel the radiant heat from it, almost like being too close to a bonfire on a chilly evening. These two opposing forces, ice and fire, are the only things that exist, and you are right there, floating between them, watching them collide in the grand, silent expanse. This tension, this perfect balance of extremes, is the very engine of creation. Historians still argue whether this creation myth is a reflection of the harsh climate and volcanic activity experienced by ancient Norse peoples. But the imagery is pretty vivid either way, as the icy mists of Niflheim meet the fiery sparks from Muspelheim. The ice begins to melt. It's not a dramatic explosion, but a slow, quiet, almost gentle process. The water drips, and from these first, life-giving drops, a being begins to form. You watch, mesmerized, as the liquid slowly takes shape. This is not a god. It's not a human. It's Ymir, the first of the Jotnar, the frost giants, a giant being, immense in scale, with a kind of bovine, almost cow-like calm about him. He's not a bad guy, per se, just the first guy. As he sleeps, a bizarre quirk of biology happens. From the sweat under his armpit, the first male and female giants are born, and from his legs, a six-headed son emerges. It's a bit strange, I know, but just go with it. It's like a biological, mythological fringe tidbit you'd find in some forgotten scroll. Meanwhile, as Ymir is busy being the first life form, the melted ice continues to drip, and from it, a cow emerges. Not just any cow, mind you, but Audhumla, the cosmic cow. She's the very source of sustenance. And she immediately starts licking the salty ice for food. And what does her licking reveal? A man, Buri, the progenitor of the gods. He's born in 3 stages, each a day apart. First his hair, then his head, and finally his whole body. Just a casual bit of historical trivia. The Norse creation story, while unique, shares the concept of an initial void and a primordial being with several other ancient mythologies. From the Greek chaos to the Egyptian nun. But our story's got a cow, which you have to admit is pretty special. You're watching, tucked safely away in the great void, as the stage is being set for the grandest family drama of all time. From the melting ice and the cosmic cow, the first beings of creation are starting to multiply, and you're still floating in the great, empty theater of Ginnungagap, watching it all unfold. Remember that first giant, Ymir? He's big, like, truly, incomprehensibly massive. He's also, as it turns out, kind of a grump, while the cosmic cow, Audhumla, keeps licking away at the salty ice and revealing the ancestors of the gods. Ymir's frost giant descendants are becoming a problem. It's like a sibling rivalry on a truly mind-boggling scale. The first god, Buri, has a son named Bor, and Bor marries a giantess named Bestla. Their 3 sons are the first true gods of the Norse pantheon as we know it: Odin, Vili, and Ve. You can practically hear the dramatic music swelling in the background. Now, Ymir and his frost giant brood are just a lot. They're chaotic, they're big, and they're not playing nice with the new kids on the block. The gods, so, Odin, Vili, and Ve decide to take a proactive approach to the whole first life on Earth situation. They do what any new gods would do when faced with a giant-sized problem. They fight him. A big, epic, primordial battle ensues, and you're a silent spectator to the first great conflict in existence. The gods, with their burgeoning powers, eventually win. They defeat Ymir, and in the process, they create the world, not from clay or magic, but from Ymir himself. This might sound a little bit gruesome, but trust me, it's a master class in cosmic upcycling. They drag Ymir's lifeless body to the center of Ginnungagap and get to work. His blood becomes the oceans and lakes, creating a deluge so vast that it drowns almost all of the frost giants. Save for two who escape on a boat. Historians still argue whether this flood narrative is an original part of the mythology or a later addition influenced by Christian tales. But either way, it's a pretty effective way to clear out the competition. So, Ymir's blood is now the water you see on the surface of the new world. His flesh becomes the land, a fertile, green expanse. His bones? They become the mountains, jutting up from the earth like jagged peaks. And his teeth and bone fragments? They are the rocks and stones you find scattered everywhere. His hair becomes the trees. His skull is propped up to form the sky, a vast, empty dome. And his brain? They toss it into the air, and it becomes the clouds. Now, here's a quirky tidbit for you. The four dwarves, Nordri, Sudri, Ostri, and Vestri, are said to hold up the sky at the four cardinal directions. It's a truly bizarre mental image. These four little guys, forever holding up the skull dome of the sky. The gods even take the sparks and glowing embers from Muspelheim and put them into the sky, creating the sun, moon, and stars. It's a beautifully simple, if somewhat macabre, explanation for the cosmos. You watch as they set the moon and the sun on their paths, each pulled by a chariot, with the wolves Skoll and Hattie forever chasing them across the sky. It's a cosmic chase scene, a timeless race that never ends. Finally, the gods create a home for themselves. Midgard, the realm of humans, is walled off from the giants using Ymir's eyebrows. It's a protective barrier, a kind of cosmic moat, if you will, to keep the giants out and the humans in. It's a bit like building a fence around your yard, but the fence is made of primordial eyebrow hair. A modern-day aside here, the idea of a flat Earth surrounded by an ocean is a common trope in many mythologies. But the Norse version with a world encircling sea is a mainstream historical fact that shows up on early Viking maps and cosmologies. The world is taking shape now. The first plants are growing, the first mountains are rising, and the first rivers are flowing. And for a moment, all is well. You float above it all, a silent witness to the dawn of a new age, a world born from violence and imagination. With the world now forged from Ymir's remains, you can feel a sense of order settling in. The fiery sparks of Muspelheim, now the stars in the night sky, twinkle above you, and the salty oceans, once Ymir's blood, lapped gently against the shores of Midgard. It's beautiful, in a slightly unsettling, cosmic recycling sort of way. The gods, now established as the rulers of this new world, are getting down to the business of creation. You watch them, Odin, Vili, and Ve, as they walk along the shores of the world they've made. They come across two logs, one of ash and one of elm. This is a quiet, profound moment, a little bit like watching a divine version of a woodworking class. They decide to create humans. From these two logs, they fashion the first man and woman. Odin gives them the breath of life and their souls. Vili gives them wit and movement. Ve gives them form, speech, and senses. And just like that, Ask and Embla, the first humans, come into being. This is a mainstream historical fact that showcases the Norse belief in a shared origin between man and nature. The human race is born from trees, not from clay or dust, reflecting a deep connection to the natural world. It's a pretty neat way to get started, if you ask me. Now that Midgard, the realm of humans, is established, the gods need a proper home for themselves. They can't just live on the beach. After all, so, they set about creating Asgard, a realm high above Midgard, a place of shining halls and golden towers. You're floating closer now, watching them build this magnificent city. It's a real construction project. And they don't just wave a magic wand. They're using their power and wit to create something grand. Asgard is connected to Midgard by a single bridge. Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. It's a beautiful, shimmering thing. A pathway of light and color. But it's not just pretty, it's also a fortified pathway. Guarded by the god Heimdall. More on him later. This bridge is a bit like a VIP entrance to the god's home. And you can only cross it with an invitation. The whole thing is designed to be a fortress against the giants who survived the flood. The gods, after all, have just seen how much trouble the giants can cause. Inside Asgard, the gods build their great halls. Odin's Hall, Valhalla, is the most famous. It's a place where half of the brave warriors who die in battle are taken by the Valkyries to feast and train for Ragnarök. The final battle, it's a kind of celestial sports bar. If you think about it, the other half of the fallen warriors go to Freya's Hall, Folkvanger, which is a detail often overlooked in mainstream portrayals. It's a little fringe tidbit that shows how complex the afterlife was for the Norse. The idea that a warrior's fate was split between two different afterlives, one focused on feasting and fighting, the other perhaps on more peaceful pursuits, is something historians still argue about. Was this a reflection of different cults, or simply two sides of the same coin? You see the gods moving through their new city, a pantheon of diverse personalities. There's Thor, the mighty thunder god, with his powerful hammer Mjolnir. He's a bit of a bruiser, but with a good heart. You'll also see Balder, the beautiful, beloved god of light, and his blind brother, Hoder. There's Heimdall, the ever-watchful guardian of the Bifrost, and Freya, the goddess of love, beauty, and war. And then there's Loki. He's a bit of a wild card. A trickster who sometimes helps the gods, and sometimes causes them a world of trouble. He's the one you have to keep an eye on. The gods are a complex family, full of rivalries and alliances, much like any family gathering, but with far more dramatic consequences. The stage is set, the world is built, the gods have their home. Now, let the stories begin, with Asgard now standing tall and glorious. The gods are getting settled. You're floating around, taking a cosmic tour of the place. It's truly a sight to behold. Golden roofs, shining spires, and a bustling energy that's a world away from the silent void of Ginnungagap. The halls are magnificent, especially Valhalla, the Hall of Odin, with its roof made of shields and rafters of spears. You can practically hear the clinking of tankards and the boisterous laughter of the Einherjar, the chosen warriors who feast there. It's like a permanent, glorious college party, but with a lot more swords. But while the other gods are busy feasting and training, Odin, the Allfather, is not one to rest on his laurels. He's driven by an insatiable hunger for knowledge and wisdom. You get a sense of this by watching him. He's always watching, always listening, always searching for a deeper understanding of the cosmos. Odin's quest for wisdom is a central theme in Norse mythology, a mainstream historical fact that underscores the Viking Age's reverence for knowledge and poetry. He's not just a god of war, he's a god of wisdom, magic, and poetry. To gain this wisdom, he undertakes some truly bizarre and painful quests. The first one you witness is his journey to Mimir's well. This well is located at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, and its waters are said to contain all the knowledge of the cosmos. But the well is guarded by Mimir, a being so wise that he holds counsel with the gods themselves. To drink from this well, you can't just show up with a cup. Mimir demands a price. And the price? Odin's eye. You watch, cringing slightly, as Odin plucks out his own eye and drops it into the well. It's a pretty intense reality check. You might think, is all that knowledge really worth it? But Odin knows it is. With one eye, he gains foresight and understanding that no other god possesses. It's a stark reminder that true wisdom often comes with a great personal sacrifice. This is a bit like that moment in a video game where you have to trade a valuable item for a key piece of information. But instead of an item, it's a body part. His journey doesn't stop there. He also wants to understand the runic alphabet, the secrets of magic and fate. For this, he undertakes an even more radical self-sacrifice. You watch as he hangs himself from a branch of Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and 9 nights, pierced by his own spear. This is a pretty grim scene, a quirky tidbit that's so specific to Norse lore. For those 9 days, he neither eats nor drinks. He's literally in a state of self-inflicted limbo, suspended between the realms of the living and the dead. Finally, on the 9th day, he gains the knowledge of the runes. He sees them, understands their power, and with that understanding, he falls from the tree, reborn with a deeper connection to the very fabric of the universe. Historians still argue whether this act of self-sacrifice is an echo of earlier shamanistic practices or a unique mythological development. But it's clear the Norse saw a deep connection between pain and wisdom. With his newfound knowledge, Odin becomes the Allfather, not just by might, but by wisdom. He is the master of magic, the lord of the runes, and the keeper of secrets. You see him moving with a newfound sense of purpose. His one eye seeing things others cannot. He has his 2 ravens, Hugin, thought, and Munin, memory, who fly across the 9 realms and return to whisper everything they see and hear into his ear. It's the ultimate intelligence network, like having a couple of highly trained, feathered spies. You watch him, a figure of silent, immense power, forever seeking to know more, to understand more, preparing for a future that he now, with his sacrifices, can see more clearly than anyone else. Now that Odin has his wisdom and the gods have their home in Asgard, the stage is set for the main cast of characters to really get going. And among them, one figure stands out, not for his strength or his honor, but for his cunning and his tendency to be a massive pain in the neck, Loki. You've probably heard his name, the god of mischief, the trickster. He's a bit like that one friend who's always pulling pranks. But on a cosmic scale, you see him now, a lean, clever-looking figure, always with a glint in his eye. But here's the thing you might not know, he's not an Aesir, one of the main gods. He's actually a giant, a Jotun, whose father is Farbauti, but he was blood sworn to Odin, a pact that made him Odin's brother. And thus, he became a part of the Asgardian family. It's a bit like a diplomatic marriage between rival families, but way more complicated and with far more chaotic consequences. Loki's introduction into the pantheon is a key moment, a mainstream historical fact that explains his unique and often contradictory role. He's the ultimate double agent, a figure who can be a helpful ally one moment and a dangerous enemy the next. He's charming and quick-witted, often saving the gods from their own predicaments, but he's also the one who creates those predicaments in the first place. You see him now, in one of his first moments of mischief. He's bored, and when Loki is bored, trouble is never far behind. He decides it would be a funny prank to cut off the beautiful golden hair of Thor's wife, Sif. It's not just a bad haircut, it's a profound insult, a public humiliation. Thor, as you can imagine, is not pleased. The thunder god is known for his short temper, and he immediately threatens to break every bone in Loki's body if he doesn't fix it. It's a classic case of, find a problem, then solve it with an even bigger problem. Loki, realizing he's in serious trouble, zips down to the realm of the dwarves. He asks them to craft new, even more magnificent hair for Sif. But he doesn't stop there. He makes a challenge, a little bit of a con. Really, he bets the dwarves that they can't create 3 more treasures as glorious as the ones he's commissioning. It's a clever trick, a bit of psychological manipulation. And the dwarves, known for their pride in their craftsmanship, take the bait. They create 3 incredible treasures: Skidbladnir, a ship that can be folded up and put in your pocket, Gingnir, Odin's spear that never misses its target, and the golden ring, Draupnir, that creates 8 new rings of equal value every 9 nights. Then, a new set of dwarves, the sons of Ivaldi. Hear about this. They create their own set of treasures to compete with Loki's. They craft a golden bristled boar that can pull a chariot, a ring for Odin that drops 8 new ones every 9 nights. And finally, Mjolnir, the mighty hammer for Thor. But this is where the quirky tidbit comes in. One of the dwarves, Brokkr, is working the bellows for the forge while his brother, Sindri, is forging the hammer. Loki, in the form of a gadfly, stings Brokkr on the eyelid, causing him to falter for just a moment. As a result, the handle of Mjolnir is made too short. It's a tiny mistake, a minor flaw, but it becomes the most recognizable feature of Thor's hammer. It's a great example of how something seemingly insignificant can have a massive impact on the world. A detail historians still argue whether it was a part of the original myth or a later addition to explain the hammer's unique shape. Loki presents his treasures to the gods. He hands over the new golden hair, the spear, and the ring, and the dwarves, in turn, present their own creations. The gods vote on which treasures are better, and they decide the dwarves' treasures are superior, especially Thor's hammer, which is deemed invaluable for the protection of Asgard. As a result, Loki loses the bet, and he has to give up his head. But he, being the clever trickster, argues that they can have his head, but they can't take any of his neck, which is a hilarious and frustrating loophole. So, the dwarves, in frustration, sew his mouth shut with leather thongs. It's a pretty gruesome punishment for a prank, but it's a clear message. Loki's pranks might be funny, but they have serious consequences. You're watching the very definition of a love-hate relationship, where the gods need Loki for his cunning, but they also wish he would just sit down and be quiet for 5 minutes. The gods, having now acquired some of their most powerful artifacts, are feeling pretty good about themselves. They have Odin's spear, Thor's hammer, even with the short handle, and a bunch of other shiny things. But there's a problem, a big, very exposed problem. Asgard itself. Remember how it was built? It's a beautiful city, but it's not a fortress yet. The gods realize they need a proper wall to protect them from the giants, who are always looking for an opportunity to cause some trouble. So, a stranger shows up, a master builder. He's a Jotun, but he's not a grump like Ymir. He's a quiet, skilled craftsman, and he offers to build an impenetrable wall around Asgard. He claims he can do it in just 3 seasons. It seems too good to be true. And of course, it is. The builder has a price, and it's a steep one. He wants the sun, the moon, and Freya, the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, in marriage. The gods, with their usual mix of arrogance and naivety, think this is an insane demand. But Loki, ever the deal-maker, suggests a compromise. Let's agree to his terms, he says, but only if he completes the wall in 1 winter, without any help from us. And if he fails, he gets nothing. The gods, always up for a good gamble, agree. They're convinced he'll never be able to do it in time, and they'll get a free wall. It's a classic case of divine hubris. And you, floating in the ether, are watching it all unfold with a certain sense of dramatic irony. This is a mainstream historical fact, the building of the wall, and it's a story that perfectly illustrates the tension between the gods and the giants. And Loki's central, chaotic role. The builder gets to work, and he's fast. In fact, he's unbelievably fast. The gods start to get nervous. He's building the wall with an almost supernatural speed, and they're starting to worry that he might actually finish on time. But here's the quirky tidbit: he has help. A massive, powerful stallion named Svalfari is helping him haul the enormous stones for the wall. This horse is doing the work of 100 men, and the wall is getting done way ahead of schedule. As the last 3 days of winter approach, the wall is nearly complete, and the gods are panicking. They're facing a future without the sun, the moon, and Freya, and they are not happy about it. They all turn to Loki, who, as the architect of this disastrous deal, is now in the hot seat. They threaten him with a fate worse than having his mouth sewn shut if he doesn't find a way to stop the builder. Loki, always quick on his feet, comes up with a plan. He knows he can't fight the horse or the builder, but he can outsmart them. So, he transforms himself. This is a great example of the Norse belief in shapeshifting, a fringe tidbit that was common in many northern European folklore tales. Loki turns into a beautiful mare. He then prances around near the builder's horse, Svalfari, in a seductive way. Svalfari, distracted by the beautiful mare, breaks free from its chains and bolts into the woods, chasing Loki. The builder, now without his magical horse, can't haul the stones he needs, and he can't finish the wall in time. He rages, realizing he's been tricked. He reveals his true form, a giant, and threatens the gods. But it's too late. The gods, seeing his giant form, call for Thor, who, as you know, is the designated giant slayer. Thor, with one swift blow of his hammer, smashes the builder's skull, putting an end to the deal and the giant's life. The gods get their wall. But there's a new problem. A few months later, Loki, having spent some time in the woods as a mare, gives birth to a truly bizarre offspring, a gray, 8-legged horse. You heard that right. It's a horse, and it has 8 legs. This horse, Sleipnir, becomes Odin's steed. the fastest horse in all the 9 realms. Historians still argue whether this tale is meant to be literal or a symbolic representation of Loki's strange and unpredictable nature. But either way, it's a pretty unique birth story. Loki's plan to save his own skin has a strange, unintended consequence that ends up being a huge boon for Odin. You're watching the ultimate example of a chaotic good character. Someone who causes problems but also ends up solving them. Often in the weirdest possible way. The gods have their wall. But they've also learned a valuable lesson. Never trust Loki with a contract. With the wall of Asgard now complete and the trickster Loki having proved his worth and his slipperiness, things are relatively peaceful. But in the world of Norse mythology, peace is usually just the quiet before the next storm. And this time, the storm is coming from the land of the giants. And it involves Thor's most prized possession. You know, that hammer with the comically short handle. Mjolnir? Well, someone has stolen it. You are watching Thor, the god of thunder, wake up one morning, reach for his hammer, and find it gone. He's not just a little annoyed, he's absolutely furious. A god without his weapon is a god without his power. And without Mjolnir, Thor can't protect Asgard from the giants. The very foundations of the cosmos are at risk. It's like a superhero losing their cape and their superpower at the same time. Thor's rage is a force of nature. But his wit is, well, let's just say it's not his strong suit. He turns to Loki, the only one clever enough to solve a problem like this. Loki, ever the willing partner in crime, agrees to help. He goes to Freya, the goddess of love, and asks to borrow her falcon cloak. Freya, seeing the seriousness of the situation, agrees, and Loki, in the form of a bird, flies off to the land of the giants to find the culprit. This is a mainstream historical fact, the theft of Mjolnir, and it's a story that highlights the importance of this single artifact. Mjolnir wasn't just a hammer, it was the symbol of divine protection and cosmic order. Loki finds the giant king, Thrym, who admits he's the one who stole the hammer. He's a big, imposing figure, a classic villain, and he's got a price for its return. He wants to marry Freya. He wants to bring the most beautiful of the goddesses into his hall and make her his wife. Loki flies back to Asgard with the news, and the gods are not happy. Freya, as you can imagine, is absolutely disgusted by the idea. She refuses outright, throwing a fit so powerful that all the halls in Asgard shake. The gods are in a bind. They can't force Freya to marry a giant, but they also can't get their hammer back without her. It's a classic mythological stalemate. This is where the plan gets ridiculous. Heimdall, the guardian of the Bifrost, has an idea. Let's disguise Thor as Freya. He says, we'll dress him in a bridal gown, put a veil over his face, and send him to Thrym's hall to get the hammer back. Thor is horrified. The idea of the mighty thunder god, the paragon of manliness, dressing up in a wedding dress is a terrible insult to his pride. He complains. He rages. But ultimately, he agrees. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit. The image of Thor in a wedding dress is one of the most memorable and bizarre moments in all of Norse mythology. You can just picture him. A big, bearded guy in a white dress, with Loki dressed as his maid of honor, preparing for a wedding they have no intention of going through with. They arrive at Thrym's hall, and the giant king is ecstatic. He has no idea that the bride is actually Thor. Loki, ever the smooth talker, makes excuses for all of Freya's strange behavior. When Thrym comments on how much she's eating and drinking, Loki explains that she hasn't eaten in 8 days from excitement. When he lifts the veil to kiss her and sees her blazing eyes, Loki says it's because she hasn't slept in 8 nights from anticipation. Finally, Thrym, in his excitement, calls for the hammer to be brought in to bless the bride. This is a mainstream historical fact. The use of Mjolnir to consecrate a wedding, showing its importance as a symbol of fertility and blessing. The giant puts the hammer on Thor's lap, and as soon as it's in his hands, Thor tears off his disguise and reveals his true form. He grabs Mjolnir, and a massive battle ensues. Thor, with his hammer back, slays Thrym and all the giants in the hall, and they return to Asgard victorious, if a little more traumatized by the experience. Historians still argue whether this myth is a burlesque parody of traditional sagas or a genuine narrative meant to be taken seriously. But either way, it's a pretty funny story. With Thor's hammer safely back in his hands, Things return to a semblance of normal in Asgard. But Loki, as usual, can't resist pushing the boundaries. You've seen him cause trouble for fun. But this time, he's about to unleash a darkness that will haunt the gods for the rest of time. Remember those children of his from his union with the giantess Angerboa? One of them is a monstrous wolf, a being of immense power and size, named Fenrir. The gods knew about Loki's children, and a prophecy foretold that they would one day be the downfall of the gods. And so, the gods decide that Fenrir must be contained. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the gods' preoccupation with fate and prophecy. They take Fenrir to Asgard and try to raise him, but he grows at an alarming rate. It's a classic case of, we knew this was a bad idea, but let's try it anyway. Soon, only the god Tyr is brave enough to feed him. Fenrir's jaws are becoming a serious problem. The gods decide to try and bind him, to prevent the prophecy from coming true. This is a scholarly debate, as historians still argue whether the Norse believed fate was an absolute, unchangeable force, or if it was something that could be mitigated, however temporarily, by action. The gods attempt to bind Fenrir with 2 iron chains, but he breaks them with ease. He's just too strong. The gods, now in a full-blown panic, turn to the dwarves, those master craftsmen who made Thor's hammer. They commission the dwarves to create a chain that is impossible to break. And the dwarves, being the quirky, fringe-tied-tail-loving people they are, get to work. They create Gleipnir, a chain that looks as flimsy as a silk ribbon, but it's not made of iron or steel. It's made of 6 impossible things: the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. You have to admit, that's a pretty unique list of ingredients. These are the things that don't exist in the world. And so, the chain is made of nothing. It's a magical paradox, a piece of metaphysical engineering. The gods take Gleipnir to an island and challenge Fenrir to a test of his strength. They tell him it's a game, that he'll easily break this flimsy-looking ribbon. Fenrir, ever the proud and arrogant wolf, agrees to be bound, but he's not stupid. He senses that this is a trick. He says he will only allow them to bind him if one of the gods places their hand in his mouth as a pledge of good faith. The gods, all of whom are terrified, look at each other, and you can almost feel the awkward silence. Who is brave enough to sacrifice a hand for the safety of the world? It's Tyr, the god of justice and war. He steps forward, a true hero, and places his hand in Fenrir's massive jaws. The gods bind Fenrir with Gleipnir, and he struggles to break free. But the chain holds. The more he strains, the tighter it gets. Fenrir realizes he's been tricked. He snaps his jaws shut, and Tyr's hand is gone. The gods laugh, relieved and victorious. But Tyr, the brave and noble god, has paid a heavy price. It's a brutal end to a heroic act. Fenrir, now bound and furious, is tethered to a rock, with a sword placed in his mouth to hold his jaws open. So he can't bite. From his open mouth, a river of spittle flows, forming a river of his own frustration and rage. You can still see him there, a silent, festering wound in the world, waiting for the day he will break free and have his vengeance. The gods have delayed the prophecy, but they haven't stopped it. They have simply postponed the inevitable. And you, as a quiet observer, know that this act of binding will have a terrible consequence when the final battle arrives. With Fenrir bound, the gods can breathe a small sigh of relief. But their troubles are far from over. There's a new problem brewing, this time involving a giantess named Skay. Her father, the giant Thjazi, was killed by the gods after he kidnapped Idun, the goddess who guarded the golden apples of youth. She's come to Asgard seeking retribution. You see her now, a formidable figure, clad in chainmail and carrying a bow and arrows, arriving with a single purpose: vengeance. This is a mainstream historical fact, the arrival of Skay, and it sets up a bizarre negotiation that could only happen in Norse mythology. The gods, not wanting to get into a full-blown war with the giants, decide to offer her a settlement. They offer her 2 choices. Either a god will pay with his life, or she can have a god as a husband. Skay, being a giantess of the mountains in the winter, decides to accept the second offer. But she has a condition. She gets to choose her husband by only looking at their feet. You can't make this stuff up. It's a truly bizarre, quirky tidbit that shows the playful and often strange nature of these myths. You can imagine the gods, all lined up, hiding their bodies behind a sheet, wiggling their toes. It's like a weird mythological version of a dating game show. Skye looks at the feet, one pair after another. She's looking for the most beautiful feet. And she finally spots them. They are perfectly shaped, with a delicate arch and a graceful curve. She chooses them, believing them to belong to Balder, the most handsome of all the gods. But when the sheet is lifted, she finds that she has chosen Nord, the god of the sea. Nord is the god of sailors and fishermen. And while he's a handsome god, his feet are beautiful because he lives by the shore. And they're always clean. It's a bit of a classic, be careful what you wish for, scenario. Historians still argue whether this myth is a commentary on the difficulty of finding common ground between two different cultures or simply a humorous tale. But either way, it's a pretty awkward situation. The two are married, but their marriage is not a happy one. Nord, the god of the sea, loves the shore and the sound of the gulls. Skye, the giantess of the mountains, loves the snow and the howl of the wolves. They decide to live together for 9 nights in Nord's home by the sea. And then 9 nights in Skye's home in the mountains. After the first 9 nights by the sea, Skye complains that the sound of the gulls keeps her awake. After the next 9 nights in the mountains, Nord complains that he can't stand the howling of the wolves. They decide that they just can't live together and part ways. It's a poignant, if slightly ridiculous, example of an irreconcilable difference. But the gods still owe Skye something for her father's death. So, Loki, ever the entertainer, takes it upon himself to make her laugh. This is another bizarre moment. You, the silent observer, watch as Loki ties one end of a rope to the beard of a goat and the other to his own, well, let's just say his personal anatomy. He and the goat then have a bizarre tug of war, screaming and crying in a way that is so utterly ridiculous that Skye bursts into laughter. It's a pretty extreme way to make someone laugh, but it works. And with that, her vengeance is complete. She has a husband, albeit a temporary one, and she has seen a god make an utter fool of himself. And with that, a truce is formed. The gods have once again avoided a war, thanks to a combination of tricky negotiations, a bizarre selection process, and Loki's willingness to humiliate himself for the good of Asgard. With the gods having made peace with Skye, things are calm for a while, but it's a deceptive calm. The greatest tragedy in Norse mythology is about to unfold, a story that will set the stage for the final, world-ending battle. It all begins with Balder, the god of light, beauty, and joy. He is beloved by all the gods, and indeed, by all the living things in the 9 realms. He is a shining beacon of purity and goodness. But recently, Balder has been having terrible nightmares, visions of his own death. This is a mainstream historical fact that shows how dreams and prophecy were seen as a direct link to a person's fate in Norse culture. The gods, worried sick about him, call a council. They are so distraught that they decide to do something about it. His mother, Frigg, the queen of the gods, decides to take a proactive approach. She goes out into the world and asks every single thing, every plant, every animal, every rock, and every piece of metal, to swear an oath that it will not harm Balder. She makes the request of everything in the cosmos, and everything agrees. The mighty oak promises not to crush him. The little pebble promises not to trip him. The sword promises not to cut him. And so on. It's a truly epic undertaking. A mother's love story on a cosmic scale. She believes she has made Balder invincible. And the gods, in their newfound confidence, decide to have a little fun. They start throwing things at Balder. Axes, stones, arrows, and spears fly at him, and they all bounce off, harmlessly. It's a bit of a party trick. A game of, let's see if we can hit the guy we all love without actually hurting him. It's an open scholarly debate whether this scene is meant to show the gods' arrogance or their profound love for Balder. But either way, it's a pretty strange game. However, Loki, the trickster, is not a fan of this game. He's a bit jealous of Balder's popularity and his perfect, unblemished nature. He's the shadow to Balder's light. He transforms himself into an old woman and goes to Frigg. He asks her if she really did get an oath from every single thing. Frigg, proud of her accomplishment, says she did, except for one small, insignificant plant that was too young to swear an oath, the mistletoe. It was so small and so harmless. She thought it was not a threat. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit. The mistletoe being the only thing that could harm Balder. It's a classic example of a seemingly insignificant detail being the key to a major plot point. Loki, seeing his opportunity, goes and finds the mistletoe. He fashions a dart from its wood and takes it back to the gods' party. He sees Balder's blind brother, Hoder, standing off to the side, not participating in the game. Loki, pretending to be helpful, asks him why he's not joining in. Hoder says he's blind and can't see where to throw anything. Loki gives him the mistletoe dart and guides his hand, telling him to throw it at Balder. Hoder, not knowing the truth, does as he's told. The mistletoe dart flies through the air and hits Balder. It pierces him, and he falls to the ground, dead. The gods are absolutely silent. They are in a state of profound grief and shock. Their golden boy, their shining light, is gone. It's the moment of maximum tragedy. A point of no return for the cosmos. The gods know who is responsible, but they can't take action against Loki in their sacred hall. They are bound by the rules of their home, but their fury is palpable. You feel it, a cold, heavy silence descending upon Asgard. The world is plunged into mourning, and a great darkness falls over the realms. The death of Balder has plunged the realms into a silent, profound grief. You're watching the gods, normally so full of life and boisterous energy, standing in stunned, sorrowful silence. They can't punish Loki in the sacred hall of Asgard, but they know who's responsible. They decide to send a messenger to Hel, the realm of the dead, to see if they can get Balder back. The gods' hopes are a little thread, and you're watching them grasp at it. Hermor, another of Odin's sons, volunteers for the perilous journey. He takes Odin's horse, Sleipnir, remember the 8-legged horse Loki gave birth to? And rides for 9 days and 9 nights through dark valleys and misty lands until he reaches the bridge to the underworld. Guarded by a giantess named Mogr. This is a mainstream historical fact. The journey to Hel, a recurring motif in many ancient mythologies. From Orpheus to the Greek myths of the underworld, Hermor finally arrives in the misty, bleak realm of Hel. It's not a place of fire and brimstone, but of cold and despair, ruled by a formidable being also named Hel, a daughter of Loki herself. She is a grotesque figure, half-beautiful woman and half-rotting corpse. A quirky tidbit about her: her face is said to be half black and half flesh-colored. A perfect physical representation of life and death. You see Hermor begging for Balder's return. He explains how every being in the cosmos is grieving for him. Hel, in a moment of unexpected mercy, agrees to release Balder, but on one condition: every single thing in the cosmos, living and dead, must weep for him. If even one thing refuses, Balder must stay in Hel. Hermor, filled with hope, rides back to Asgard with the news. The gods immediately send out messengers to every corner of the 9 realms, asking for all things to weep for Balder. And they do. The gods weep, the humans weep, the animals and the plants weep, the mountains and the rocks weep. Even the giants, who were often at odds with the gods, shed tears for the beloved Balder. It seems as if the condition will be met, and Balder will be returned. But then, a problem arises. One of the messengers finds a giantess named Ok living in a cave. When asked to weep for Balder, she refuses. She says, Ok will weep dry tears for Balder's burial. Let Hel hold what she has. The messenger is crestfallen. The gods are furious. They realize that this giantess is none other than Loki in disguise. This is the moment when the last thread of hope is severed. And the gods realize that Loki's betrayal is not just a prank, it's a profound, cosmic-level act of malice. This is an open scholarly debate as historians still argue whether Loki's refusal to weep for Balder was an act of pure evil or a necessary act of fate, fulfilling the prophecy of Ragnarök. With Ok's refusal, Balder is trapped in Hel forever. He sends a ring back to Odin as a final message, and the gods are left in a state of inconsolable grief. This is the turning point. The gods, now without their light and their hope, know that Ragnarök, the end of the world, is coming. They know that Loki's actions have set the stage for their doom. Loki, seeing their grief and fury, flees. He knows he has gone too far. He has crossed the line from prankster to enemy, from a difficult friend to an agent of chaos and destruction. You're watching the gods, their faces etched with sadness, now also filled with a new, burning rage. They will have their vengeance. And you, as the silent witness, know that what comes next will not be pretty. The gods, having suffered the loss of Balder, are now consumed with rage and grief. The serene, party-like atmosphere of Asgard is gone, replaced by a brooding tension. You're watching them, their faces grim, as they hunt for Loki. The trickster, knowing he has gone too far, has fled Asgard and is hiding in a secluded mountain hall. He's created a net, and he's fishing, but his mind is racing with the what-ifs. He knows the gods are coming for him. This is a mainstream historical fact. The hunt for Loki, and it's the final act of this divine drama before the ultimate conclusion. The gods, led by Odin, find his hiding place. Loki, ever the quick change artist, transforms himself into a salmon and leaps into a nearby waterfall, hoping to escape, but Thor, using his quick reflexes, grabs him by the tail. The salmon is so slippery that Thor's grip is not strong enough. But he grabs it with his full hand and crushes it. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit. The explanation for the narrow, tapering tail of the salmon, which is said to have been pinched by Thor's mighty hand. Loki, now in his true form, is captured. His tricks and his cunning have finally run out. He is completely at the mercy of the gods. The gods decide on a punishment that is both cruel and poetic. They find two of Loki's sons, Vali and Narfi. They transform Vali into a wolf, and Vali, in a fit of wild rage, tears his brother Narfi to pieces. They use the entrails of Narfi to bind Loki to 3 large rocks. It's a pretty gruesome punishment, but it's a clear message. Loki's own family is being used to punish him. It's a powerful and final act of divine justice. But the punishment isn't over yet. They place a venomous serpent above his head, and its poison drips down onto his face. The pain is excruciating, but Loki's wife, Sigyn, stands by him, forever loyal. She holds a bowl to catch the venom, but every time she has to empty the bowl, a drop of venom falls on Loki's face, and he writhes in agony, causing the world to shake. These are the earthquakes you feel in Midgard, a grim reminder of Loki's eternal suffering. Loki is now bound, a silent, seething rage building up inside of him, waiting for the day he will break free. This is the moment when all hope for reconciliation is gone. The gods have made a definitive statement. They will not tolerate Loki's chaos any longer. He has crossed a line, and his punishment is eternal. Historians still argue whether this final act of divine justice is a reflection of a later, more moralistic worldview or a genuine part of the original myth. But either way, it's a powerful and disturbing image. You are watching the end of an era. The gods have made their final stand against chaos. But in doing so, they have also set the stage for their own destruction. They have dealt with their problems by binding their enemies. But they know that these bonds will not hold forever. You see the silent, bound figures of Fenrir and Loki, 2 ticking time bombs, waiting for the day they will break free and have their revenge. The world is now a quieter, sadder, and more somber place. The light of Balder is gone, and the gods know that the long night is coming. The final threads of the world are being woven, and they are not threads of gold, but of a dark and terrible prophecy. The stage is set for Ragnarök, the end of everything. With Loki bound and Balder in hell, the world has become a much darker place. The gods are now living under the shadow of Ragnarök, the prophesied end of the world. But it's not going to happen overnight. The signs of the approaching doom are subtle at first, and you, the quiet observer, are watching them unfold. The first sign is Fimbulwinter, the great winter, not just one long winter, mind you, but 3 consecutive winters with no summer in between. It's a mainstream historical fact that this apocalyptic winter is one of the most famous parts of the Norse prophecy. The snow falls from all directions, the winds howl, and the sun and moon, once kept in their path by the gods, are now being chased by their ancient enemies. The wolves Skoll and Hati. The world is plunging into a deep freeze. You feel the cold creeping into everything, an unending chill that turns the rivers to ice and the earth to a hard, unforgiving surface. This isn't a fun, festive winter, it's a time of famine and despair. People in Midgard turn against each other, fighting over what little food and resources are left. All the bonds of kinship and loyalty break down. You see brothers slaying brothers, fathers turning on sons. It's a tragic, internal war, A complete moral breakdown of humanity. This is a scholarly debate, as historians still argue whether this moral collapse is a reflection of the societal fears of the Norse or a necessary precursor to the Great Battle. It's a deeply pessimistic view of humanity, that under the most extreme conditions, we will turn on each other. The other signs of Ragnarök are more dramatic. The wolf Fenrir, who you remember was bound by the gods, is straining against his chains. The bonds that held him are starting to fray and snap. The sword that held his jaws open is being pushed out. You can almost hear his guttural growls, a low rumble from the depths of the earth, as he prepares to break free. And his brother, the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr, who encircles the world, is stirring in the ocean. The churning of his massive body causes the seas to rage and the waves to crash over the land. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit. The belief that the serpent's movements cause the tidal waves and the storms that plague the world. It's a powerful, terrifying image of a world-encircling force of nature. Finally, the sun and the moon are caught. The wolves Skoll and Hati, who have been chasing them since the beginning of time, finally catch their prey and devour them. The sky goes black, and the stars disappear. The world is plunged into darkness. A cold, unending night. The great world tree, Yggdrasil, which connects all the 9 realms, begins to tremble and groan. It's the sound of the entire cosmos groaning in pain. A terrible, final death rattle. It's a clear sign that the end is not just coming, but it's here. You are watching a world fall apart. A complete cosmic-level doomsday scenario. The giants, led by the fire giant Surtur, are preparing for war. They are gathering their forces, and you can see them. A massive army of fire and ice, ready to march on Asgard. The boat Nagfar, made from the nails of the dead, is now full and ready to sail. And Loki, having finally broken free from his chains, is there, at the head of the army. He has come for his vengeance. He has become the ultimate enemy of the gods, the personification of chaos and destruction. All the quiet tensions of the past are now coming to a head. And the stage is set for the final, bloody battle. The world has been plunged into darkness, and the signs of Ragnarök have come to pass. You are no longer a passive observer. You are now caught in the middle of the final battle. A great, roaring clash that will decide the fate of all things. The forces of chaos, the giants and the monsters, are marching towards Asgard. They're a vast, howling horde, led by the fire giant Surtur and, of course, a freed and vengeful Loki. The gods, with their heroes from Valhalla and their own incredible powers, are ready to meet them. This is a mainstream historical fact. The Battle of Ragnarök, and it's the culmination of every myth and prophecy we've heard so far. You find yourself on the battlefield. The plain of Vigrir, a flat expanse said to stretch for 100 leagues. The ground shakes with the force of 2 armies colliding. Odin, the Allfather, is at the head of the gods, riding his 8-legged horse Sleipnir. Carrying his spear Ginnungagap, he's going to face Fenrir, the monstrous wolf he bound so long ago. You watch as the 2 ancient foes meet. Odin, the god of wisdom and war, has the courage to face his fate. And Fenrir, the beast of vengeance, finally gets his moment of retribution. The wolf swallows Odin whole, bringing an end to the Allfather. This is a truly tragic and powerful moment. The death of the king of the gods. But Odin's son, Ymir, immediately steps forward. He places one foot on Fenrir's lower jaw, a foot that is said to be a strange, quirky tidbit, a shoe made from all the scraps of leather that have ever been saved by shoemakers throughout time. With his foot on the wolf's jaw, he tears its mouth open, killing it. It's a moment of vengeance and new hope, a son avenging his father's death. But the battle rages on. Thor, the thunder god, is fighting his ancient enemy, the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr. This is a battle that has been destined since the serpent first encircled the world. Thor, with his hammer Mjolnir, lands a final, killing blow on the serpent. But the victory is short-lived. He takes 9 steps and then falls to the ground, dead, poisoned by the serpent's venom. It's a sad, quiet moment in the middle of the chaos. The end of the mightiest of the gods. You see the gods falling one by one. Freyr, a god of fertility and peace, fights the fire giant Surtur with his bare hands, having foolishly given away his sword, and falls to him. Tyr, the one-handed god, fights the hound Garmr, the guardian of Hell's Gate, and they both slay each other. And then there's the final, bitter showdown. Loki versus Heimdall. The trickster and the guardian. The one who brought chaos and the one who tried to maintain order. They fight with a ferocity born of a long, mutual hatred, and in the end, they both kill each other. It's a fitting end for two characters who were so inextricably linked by their opposing natures. The Battle of Ragnarök is not a victory for the gods or the giants. It's a mutual annihilation, a great, roaring, beautiful, and terrible final scene where all the main players fall. The fire giant Surtur, having slain Freyr, now lets his fire consume the whole world. The entire cosmos, from Asgard to Midgard to the depths of hell, is consumed in a great, cleansing fire. The sun and the moon are gone. The stars have fallen, and the world tree, Yggdrasil, burns. It's a total, complete, and utter end. This is a scholarly debate as historians still argue whether the Norse view of the end of the world was purely pessimistic or contained a glimmer of hope. The fire of Surtur has consumed the world. You're floating in the cosmic darkness, watching the embers of the great fire fade to nothing. There is no sound, no heat, no light. The great world tree, Yggdrasil, has been reduced to ashes. The gods are all gone. The giants are all gone. The humans are gone. The world has been completely, utterly wiped clean. It's a profound emptiness, a new Ginnungagap. But this time, you know what has just happened. You know the price that was paid for this absolute stillness. It's a moment of reflection, a quiet sadness that permeates the void. But wait, a small flicker of light, a green shoot from the burnt-out stump of the world tree. And from within it, two humans emerge. They survived Ragnarök by hiding inside the tree. They are named Leif and Lifrisur, and they are the new first man and woman. A new sun, the daughter of the old one, rises in the sky, her light timid and gentle. The world begins to regrow. A fresh, new world, born from the ashes of the old. The fields are green, the rivers are clear, and the air is fresh. The darkness is gone, and a new dawn is upon us. And the gods? A few of them survive. Some of Odin's sons, Vir and Vali, survive the battle. Thor's sons, Moi and Magni, also survive, and they inherit their father's hammer, Mjolnir. They have inherited the legacy of the old gods. But they are a new generation, unburdened by the ancient feuds and prophecies. They have seen what happens when pride and arrogance lead to a world-ending war. And they are here to rebuild. Baldur, the beautiful god of light, returns from hell, along with his blind brother Hodur. A new pantheon for a new world. They have a second chance. A quiet moment of peace after the chaos. The world is reborn, and it's a world where the old grudges and the old sorrows are gone. It's a place of quiet hope and a new beginning. Historians still argue whether this hopeful ending was a part of the original myth, or if it was a later addition influenced by Christian beliefs in a world to come. But either way, it's a beautiful, gentle end to a truly epic and tragic story. This is the entire story. From the primordial emptiness of Ginnungagap to the birth of the world from a giant's body. The rise and fall of the gods. The creation of humans. The endless battles with giants. The binding of the great beasts. And the final, fiery cataclysm that ended everything. And then, the quiet, peaceful rebirth. The Norse believed in a cyclical universe. A world that was destroyed and then reborn again. A process that would repeat forever. And you, the silent witness, have seen it all. You have seen the whole story, from start to finish, and you are left in a place of quiet serenity. This journey through the myths is coming to a close. The sun is setting, not in a fiery blaze of destruction, but in a gentle, calming glow. The sounds of the ancient world are fading now. The clash of swords and the roar of giants giving way to the gentle hum of the night. You're no longer floating in the void. You're back in your own room. In your own bed. The world of gods and monsters is now just a distant echo. A whisper on the wind. The stories have been told. And the journey is complete. The night is quiet. And the air is still. Your mind is no longer racing with epic battles and cosmic prophecies. The images are fading, softening at the edges. The characters are becoming shadows. And the grand narrative is becoming a single, simple feeling of calm. The world of myth has released you. And it's time to rest. You've earned it. Let the final images of a peaceful, green earth and a new sun in a clear sky fill your mind as you drift away. There's no more running, No more fighting. No more cosmic drama. Just a soft, serene silence. You can close your eyes now. The long journey is over. The stories are done, and all is quiet.